Well, hello and good afternoon. Welcome again today to our special event. My name is Guy Stevens. I'm the founder and executive director of the Alliance Against Seclusion and Restraint. We started the Alliance Against Seclusion and Restraint to really raise awareness about the issue of restraint and seclusion that are used in schools across the nation and really across the world. We're focused on kind of informing people and ultimately changing laws and policies to protect children. So we are always hoping to influence a change to reduce and eliminate the practices of restraint and seclusion and make schools safer for students, teachers, and staff. So I'm very, very excited today. We have another amazing guest today with us. We have Sam Maloney, who's going to be joining us for a special interview, and we'll be introducing Sam here in just a moment. I do want to let you know as we're getting started that we will be taking questions with Sam during the event. So if you have questions, feel free to share those during today's interview. Also to let you know, this is being recorded. So this will be available after the live broadcast on Facebook, YouTube, as well as available as an audio podcast that can be downloaded on iTunes or Spotify and others. So before we get started with Sam, I want to take a moment to introduce you to a member of our team today, Jennifer Litton-Tidd. Jennifer is a wife and mother of 4 wonderful sons, 2 of whom are autistic. She's a 30-year political activist who makes the world more beautiful for more people. She's lobbied on state and the federal level, organized rallies and civil disobedience, committed to societal change, and still believes that we live in a system where people have great power. Jennifer is our director of advocacy here at the Alliance Against Seclusion and Restraint. If you follow us on Facebook or Twitter or anywhere, you no doubt have seen many of Jennifer's creations to help share our message. She is our chief meme maker as well, and does a lot to contribute to what we're doing here to try to improve things related to the use of restraint and seclusion. So Jennifer, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's exciting to have you. We've been doing this with several of the members of our team, and this is the first one that you're on, and we're really excited to have you here today. So you and I have had a chance to talk a little bit about Sam, and we had a chance to talk to him before this started. And I'm going to bring Sam up on the screen with us, and wondered if you would do us the honor of introducing Sam to our guest.
I am glad to. I'm really excited about this. Sam Maloney is a 20-year-old photographer from Rochester, New York. Sam started his photography journey at 10 years old. He's also a restraint and seclusion survivor from the ages of 5 to 14 years old. Sam is continuing his photography and education through his person-centered plan through New York State. Sam is also working to support Autism Acceptance. Autism on U.S. routes 11 and 20 is a journey to inspire others to see the best in themselves. Sam will be traveling the country to spread his campaign to change Autism Awareness to Autism Acceptance.
Yep.
And my favorite thing I just read on his page, other than the marvelous artwork, the photography that he did, was a quote: "If you can't stop thinking about it, don't stop working on it." And I'm really excited to be here with Sam.
Absolutely. Sam, welcome. We're really excited to have you here with us today, and appreciate you.
Thank you very much.
Taking the time to talk to us. Of course, you and I have had a chance to talk on a couple occasions now prior to this interview. And again, really appreciate your willingness to share your story. Our stories are so important in influencing change. When people hear the story from someone like you that has been through the experiences that you've had, and really want to impact positive change, it's really inspiring. So really appreciate you here to share your story, but also recognize that you have been through significant trauma in your schooling and through the use of restraint and seclusion. And I just want to remind you that at any point you need a break, or if there's any question that at all concerns you, you are free to take a break whenever. You are a very special guest for the day. So just keep that in mind as we're moving forward. And I want to let people in the audience know also, hearing some of these stories can be very triggering as well. So just keep that in mind as we're going through the interview today. So with that, we will go ahead and begin with questions. And I think what we'll do, Jennifer, is I'll let you have the first question here if you'd like, and then I will take the next one.
Okay. Sam, your experience being restrained and secluded started when you were very young. What can you tell us about your earlier experiences at school, and how old were you when you were first restrained or secluded?
Well, when I was first restrained and secluded when I was 5 to 7 years old, somewhere around there. But it was a very, 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 very traumatizing experience. I can tell you that much.
Yeah.
They would use prone restraints where you have your hand behind your back, and like a police officer would do so, basically, like a police officer, or having your arm pulled back, like you're feeling like your arm is getting pulled out of its socket, basically. So, and it was very, 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 very traumatizing for anyone, honestly, and it's not a good experience at all.
I imagine not. And what about seclusion? Were you ever secluded?
Yes, I was. I was thrown into closets, legs and arms being held and being thrown into a closet, basically, and almost hit my head, and and it was, I cannot lie about this stuff, it's very, very surreal, but it doesn't sound real, but it actually does happen in our school systems, basically.
We believe. We
Yeah, absolutely. Sam, I mean, to that point, the first time I heard the words restraint and seclusion in the context of talking about a school, I almost couldn't believe it, just from the sense of, I could not imagine these things happening in a school. You just don't think that the kids would be physically restrained. I mean, again, you mentioned earlier, but the kinds of things that are sometimes happening are things that you imagine happening during an arrest or during some kind of law enforcement. You don't imagine that kids, I mean, often, as young as 5, 6, 7 years old, are having this happen to them. So it really is. I mean, it really is unbelievable. Not in a way that, not believing what people are saying, but just in a way that, it's hard to imagine when you first hear about this, and which is of course why, as an organization and along with you, we want to do what we can to change this, because absolutely we can do better. Your mother had mentioned to me when we talked that she actually remembers seeing you being restrained in a prone restraint when you were about 7 years old.
Yes.
She said that she walked in and there were 3 people that were on top of you and they had your hands behind your back. I'm sure that had to be, very, very difficult, not only while it was happening, but do you recall kind of how that affected, you and your mother, that had to be very difficult for you both.
Yes.
Do you remember anything about the impact that had on you?
Well, the impact on me was I was very, very dysregulated and everything, and I couldn't control my anger, basically. And it impacted my family. It impacted, basically my family, the people around me, that, if I'm in public, I can't control my anger, and, it's upsetting, basically. And, over time, I had to learn. Does it help
when you're in that situation and kind of people put their hands on you, or does it make it harder to regain control?
Well, if you put my hands on me, hands on me, I'm going to get very, very upset, basically. Not with a police officer, but a teacher, a teacher, basically. That's unacceptable. I can understand if it was a police officer and they're trying to protect themselves, but if it's a teacher, that's very, very wrong.
Yeah,
like that's unacceptable.
Right. And that's what we found. You mentioned that you were upset or angry. And, very often, when I hear the stories about kids that have been restrained and secluded, why are they upset or angry? What need do they have that's not being
Right.
appropriately met? And the moment you lay hands on a kid to restrain or seclude them, you're not making things calmer. You're not
You're
helping
making more things intense.
That's right.
basically.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, one of our viewers just mentioned, and this is exactly it. You're kicking in that fight or flight response, and that is something that's built into our brains.
Yeah,
we
it's
are
a defense
hardwired.
mechanism.
Absolutely.
Did anyone ever ask you why you were angry?
That's a really, really hard question. No one really asked why I was angry at all. Like they would just put my hands on me and I would just freak out basically. And like it's a defense mechanism. I can't do nothing about it because
Right.
if you put your hands on me, I'm gonna react in one way or another.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. I mean, too often, unfortunately, we find that people aren't concerned why things are happening. They're more concerned with modifying the behavior than kind of understanding and helping people
and
through.
accepting.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So let me ask you a question. Why do you think restraint and seclusion, are used in schools?
To keep people safe, but it's obviously not keeping people safe.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And it's meant for that purpose. Basically.
So do you have an idea of, because I agree with you. I mean, all the data that we've looked at kind of shows that the moment you lay hands on a child, you're escalating the situation. You're increasing the chance that not only might the child get injured or traumatized, but also the teacher and the staff might get injured or traumatized. So it's counter to what it's being used for. I mean, what do you think that people should be doing instead of restraint and seclusion, or how could they reduce these things to make kids actually truly safer?
Find creative ways to be safer and actually give them what they need, basically, instead of putting your hands on them and escalating the situation, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it absolutely goes to that thought of, appropriately accommodating a child. A child that's being restrained or secluded is a child that has a need that's not being appropriately met or is trying to communicate something. And unfortunately, the response is one that then makes things worse. And of course, one of the things that we've found, and I think you probably can relate to as well, is that once these things start being used, once you start being restrained or secluded, I'm imagining that you felt really not very safe in that classroom because you didn't know when something you might do might trigger somebody to put their hands on you.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, I would basically just, to defend against that. I have a poor sleep schedule because of this. I would always lay down on the desk and actually sleep throughout the whole day because I was afraid that I was going to get restrained, basically.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So go ahead, Jennifer.
Do you think that I was also restrained and secluded as a child, and it is striking to me every single person with whom I speak who was restrained and secluded, the question why is never asked. Do you think that beyond accommodations, just talking to you, if people had just talked to you and asked you what was wrong, that would have changed?
It would have changed the whole thing, basically. It would have changed the whole perspective, So.
Yeah, we had a comment here from Mary, and she just said they don't try to figure out why the sensory overload has occurred. They just instantly put you in the prone position. And of course, there's a lot of tactics they may go to, but very often, they're not trying to figure out what's going on or what does Sam need to be successful. And unfortunately, that increases the likelihood of these kinds of things happening.
Or what does Sam need to feel like a human being?
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Feelings are being, whose personhood is being respected.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, it's been a number of years since this happened to you, and we'll talk a little bit more about some of your experiences here. But, thinking back on some of the staff that were doing these things to you, what advice would you give to them now, or what would you tell them to try to convince them that they shouldn't be doing these kinds of things, that they're really injuring, not just physically, but the traumatizing
Mentally.
kids. Right.
I would say to them, just find creative ways. I wouldn't really forgive them what they did to me, but I would say find creative ways and actually realize you give what these kids what they need, accommodations, whatever they need, and support them. Basically, you want to. Is that the main if I'm correct, you want them to be successful in life, and give them what they need, and they would actually move on in life, basically. And it's very, very sad to say that most kids with disabilities don't move on in their life until they're like 14, 15, 16, 17, basically, when they should be moving on in life when they're much younger, basically. And I didn't move on until I was after I got out of the school in 2014. I didn't move on until I was 18, basically, and I had to accept and actually advocate for myself. And my mom taught me that to actually advocate for myself and just advocate.
Yeah,
Which it's very important.
And I've talked to your mom, and I know she's been an amazing advocate for you as well.
Of course, yes.
And I mean, you're
a lot
really,
of other people too.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And it's critical. And I mean, unfortunately, sometimes these things happen, and parents aren't even aware. I mean, there are kids that end up getting restrained and secluded, and they're not. The schools aren't informing parents, and of course, the child's going to be having a really difficult time, and they're probably seeing things like that from home.
Can I say something?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I would pay attention to basically pay attention, very, very close attention, if you're sending a kid to a school. And if you notice that something's wrong, ask. Don't be afraid to ask. Yeah. And if they don't tell you stuff, if they don't tell you what you need to know, what's going on in that school, obviously something's wrong with the school, basically. And then my mom didn't know that, basically. Now she knows. Now she knows that do that, basically. Which I'm not in school, but I'm homeschooled still. I'm gonna be homeschooled until I'm 21 because of the school system and everything, which I miss. To be fair, I missed 6 years of school, but homeschooling actually has allowed me to be more creative with myself, basically, and with my photography career. So,
yeah, it's a really important point, and something we've tried to make people aware of as well, because there are times where a child's being restrained or secluded at school, and there are actually cases where the child assumes that their parents know. They assume that their parents are aware, and this can be really tough on a family. But there's also instances where a child assumes they're in trouble, and it affects their own self-worth. They don't want to come home and say, "Guess what, Mom? I was thrown in the seclusion room today." So sometimes parents are absolutely unaware, and it's really hard on the families.
Exactly.
Now, when you were in this experience, were you seeing other children at the school also being restrained and secluded?
Every single day. Every single day, a kid after another, basically. And it was very, very traumatizing for me, because I couldn't do nothing. I couldn't step in and actually stop the teacher and everything. And because I couldn't do anything, which was very traumatizing. Basically, I would just walk past them and say nothing.
Can I have a question for you. With many of the states now responding to press and lawsuits and everything else, they're trying to regulate restraint and seclusion to, they say, oh, you can only have this much time in a seclusion cell. I've been restrained and secluded, so I'm asking this question almost rhetorically, but when you are being secluded, when you're in a restraint and seclusion cycle in your life, is what I call it, because it's a daily occurrence. Are you only thinking about seclusion while you're being secluded, or are you thinking about it all day long? You're thinking
all day long.
You're worried before you go to school.
All day long, even every single night.
Yeah.
I would say, am I gonna, be in trouble again? Am I gonna get restrained again? I didn't really realize that I was thinking it, but like I was, I even told the bus drivers, I was like, guys, I don't want to go, I don't want to go to school. And I even told my mom that. She was like, you have to. I'm like, damn.
Did you ever feel physically ill, like on the bus on the way to school, or physically ill?
What it would, I always I would have a upset stomach. I wouldn't pretend, basically, but one day I noticed that like I was like I would get an upset stomach because that feeling in your stomach, something's gonna happen. Basically, your gut feeling, your gut feeling.
Limiting the time someone's in a seclusion room, in other words, doesn't make it less traumatic. Is kind of
no, because they're grabbing you and throwing you in there. That's what they're doing, which is very, very wrong.
I want to share just a quick comment that we had. I think this is my friend Gail from Australia, if I'm not mistaken. She said, "What a profound statement, Sam. Parents should listen to their kids about what's going on, and it's not even just listening. It's making sure that you're asking, or if you're seeing behaviors or school of a kid not wanting to go to school that used to love school. It's really being tuned in, right?
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. So my understanding is that you started off in a public school, and that when you were 7 years old, the principal kicked you out of that school, and that you moved to a private school. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience? And when you went to the private school, was this one that was better set up to accommodate you, or?
So what happened was my old principal got pregnant. Basically, she had a kid, and she got pregnant, had a kid, and she couldn't do her job anymore. Then the new principal came in, and said, "I don't want to support you anymore. You're out."
So you moved into a private placement, and was that? I mean, was that because my recollection is you went to two different private schools, right?
Yes,
okay,
I have. I've been to a bunch of schools.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
And how was that experience? Was it? I mean, what was different about that? And were they still using a lot of restraint and seclusion in those placements?
A lot of restraint and seclusion. Every single school that I went to. Every single school.
Now, do you mind sharing the state that you're in?
Oh, New York.
Okay. Well, somebody asked what state you were in.
Yeah.
So what about, I know when you and I talked, you talked to me a little bit about one of the schools that you went to, or the private schools. And you talked about, kind of what they were doing for you in terms of education. What was the education like at that private school that you had talked to me about? You kind of made the mention that they weren't really doing much to teach you. Can you tell me about that a little bit more?
Honestly, they wouldn't do anything, and they would force me to write, which didn't work at all. I would just get angry, and that was a trigger for me. And then they would go ahead and restrain me, and even basically just I had this one teacher grab me by my shirt and slam me against the lockers, basically.
It had to be really difficult. You also, kind of mentioned, one of the things that of course happened is once they started restraining and secluding you, as you were probably there fearful of being restrained and secluded, you were on edge. They were ready to restrain and seclude you. It just created this cycle that continued. And you weren't getting a lot of positive support. There weren't people there making relationships with you and they're in your corner. And I remember you telling me that at one school that you went to, that you actually had a number of people kind of tell you that you were going to end up in jail. Do you remember that? Do you remember that kind of thing happening?
So they would just tell me, like, put their hands on me and said, if you keep this up, you're going to jail, basically. And yeah.
So at some point, your story made the front page of a newspaper. There, can you tell me about that story, and did that lead to any change?
Well, the newspaper, I think they contacted us. My mom can correct us, what she isn't here right now, but I think they contacted us to tell my story. And to answer your question, no, it didn't lead to any change or just change in general, basically. So
they became aware because of the advocacy work your mother was doing. Is that what had happened?
Yeah.
Okay. And they shared what was happening about to you, and
no one listened, basically. So yeah.
All right, Jennifer, you want to take a question?
Let's see. It's my understanding that you have a therapist that you really like now. Can you tell us about that? And was this not always the case? Was there a time when you had mental health experts that did not believe you?
Of course. I went through, I think, 5 or 6 therapists, 7 therapists, where none of them really, I didn't really feel that they really believed me, didn't really believe me. They were very sarcastic, and which that doesn't work with anyone. If you're being sarcastic, you could tell when they're being sarcastic, basically. And then, okay, I'm done. And then I move on to a next therapist. But my therapist right now, she's very, very respectful. She's not sarcastic. She believes me, and she's very, very supportive. She's like a mother, basically, because she has kids that go to school right now, and she understands that kind of stuff, basically. And she's very, very professional with her job.
So, when a lot of victims of all kinds of violence aren't believed, that's a really common experience. How did you feel when you weren't believed? And then how did you feel once the first time someone believed you?
So I basically just didn't really, when they didn't believe me, basically, I would just say that, like, I'm done. I'm done with you. I'm leaving. I told my mom, let's go. Let's get out of here. I'm done. And I would go through multiple therapists at a time, basically. And I'm very, very glad that I found a therapist that I found right now that I can actually work with, where she can actually believe me and is very supportive, like I said. So, yeah.
Yeah, being believed is a big breakthrough for anyone who's suffered any kind of violence, and I consider what you've gone through violence, definitely. So I'm glad that you're believed now. I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah, and it just really emphasizes that importance of relationship, that somebody that's actually willing to spend the time with you, get to know you, develop a relationship with you, and connect with you. And you can't connect with people and form relationships with people when you're physically restraining or secluding them, or when you're telling them you don't believe them. I mean, that's not a way you can build a meaningful relationship by any means.
Right.
So I know from talking to you that you're really interested in helping change things related to the use of restraint seclusion. So, you're 20 years old now. You went through this, when you were much younger as a child, but the impact of this on your life has been tremendous. Tell me more about, your interest in influencing change related to this. What is it you want to do, and what's the change that you want to see happen?
Well, the change I want to see happen is not the use of restraint and seclusion, and the seclusion being out of the question, basically. And I think that's very, very important. And what I'm going to be doing, I'm hopeful, is going to the what is it called?
State House or
not State House, in Washington, basically, or if I wanted to go to the State House in Albany and tell my story, basically, and have other people there, like advocates that, like my friend Vic, he's been part of my life for ever since I was a child, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's very, very important to have advocates and everything. He even offered me, once I'm ready and once people are ready, he would offer me to drive down to Albany and tell my story, basically, with him. And yeah.
Yeah, I'd love, I think you and I and your mother even talked about this at one point. Certainly we hope to see federal legislation to protect kids from restraint and seclusion, especially looking at how this happens disproportionately to kids that have disabilities and minorities. We've got to do something. The time has never been more right to get this done. I'd love to have you at some point down to Capitol Hill and have people listening to your voice. I mean, the voice of a young man like yourself that has been through this would be so powerful and influencing change. So know that when something is on the horizon, that we need to hear you down here, Sam. We need to have people understand what happened to you and that they can do better. So I'm really excited to hear you say that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can you tell us, we've talked a little bit about your, your efforts in terms of advocacy work, but you also more broadly are involved in some really inspirational advocacy efforts related to autism. And, I know that you have your Autism on U.S. Routes 11 and 20 campaign. Can you talk to everybody that's out there and tell them a little bit about what this campaign is and what you're hoping to accomplish with it?
So we want to basically change the word awareness to autism awareness to autism acceptance. Mm-hmm. So what we're going to be doing is, it's a learning experience for me, how to drive and, to travel, basically. And we're going to be meeting friends, family, and families that have friends and families that have children or adults or any age, boy or girl, that has autism, basically. And we get to talk to them and have dinner with them and and get to know them. And then we're on our way again to our next destination, which is on this is going to be along Route 11 and 20, which starts from the tippy top up from Route 11 starts from the tippy top of New York all the way down to New Orleans, and Route 20 is all the way from Boston to Oregon, basically.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
So we're going to be stopping in towns and talking to families and to actually get my name out there and actually make change, basically. So
that's great. That's great. And I know you've been doing a lot of work to prepare for this and raising money. Can you tell us a little bit about what you've been doing to prepare for this?
Well, I'm learning how to drive right now, so it's going to be a learning experience. I have a very, very wonderful driving teacher, and it's through Drive On, which I fought tooth and nail to get, basically. Me and my mom fought tooth and nail to get that. And it's very, very important to have a car to actually get places and actually meet with people, and it's a very, very important part of life that I need to learn, basically. And and basically it's just very important. So
and when are you planning? I know that you had kind of a false start where you had hoped to begin on this journey, and at the last minute there were some issues. What do you
pandemic or something?
No, that doesn't help either.
So what happened was we were on our way back from a photo shoot, and we were on our way back, and people were basically passing us on because we were going slow, basically. And my mom decided to speed up that please the drivers and everything. And basically we hit a deer, basically. And my mom, I felt so bad for my mom because she freaking fought so hard just to get this done. It was the day before we were supposed to leave, basically, when we hit a deer. But the positive part is this was a couple days after the coronavirus hit, basically, very, very hard in New Orleans, where we're supposed to be, basically. And we're like, oh, we probably shouldn't go, you know. And so I think that was a moment of realization where, like, a gift from God or whatever, that like saying like, no, don't go, because you know there's something's gonna happen, you know. This is it's a miracle moment, you know.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So do you have a target date now for when you're hoping to do this again?
Hopefully by 2022, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
That's great.
So
that's great. So I want to hit a couple comments here real quickly. Kaylee said it's great to hear that you finally have someone that believes you, and
thank you.
Yeah, that's great. Absolutely. I have another one here from Casey that says, I'm hearing respectful, believes me, supportive, professional. These are the keys for students feeling safe.
Of course.
Yep. Absolutely agree with that as well. So I want to hit one more question here about kind of the restraint and seclusion, and then I want to transition into talking about your photography and some of the great things that you're doing. So, you know, we no doubt have watching today, and we'll have people watching this in the future who have had families that have been impacted by restraint and seclusion.
Yep.
What would you say to these families? You know, as someone who's been through this, what would you tell a family? What would your advice be to a family whose child might be going through this even now?
What I would say is think outside the box, which my mom would always say to herself. Think outside the box, be creative, and if the child needs something, and you know, actually find supportive people like I did, or my mom did for me, find supportive people that are willing to help. And one of the things that really, really helped me was homeschool, basically. And if they're going through something, homeschool is a option, basically. And they could go on a college level, which most people don't get to do, basically, in normal school. Because I'm on a college level right now, and I'm learning very, very, very advanced stuff with photography and business and website, doing SEO stuff with websites and everything for my website. And most people don't really get the option to do that in regular school because they don't offer it.
Now that said, it's great that your your mom was able to do that, and you've been able to do that. And of course, unfortunately, there's some people that would be really tough for.
Well, of course.
Yeah. Had you, I mean, I think how to put this. We homeschooled my son for a couple of years after his initial instance, but
you want them to be social too,
right?
You know?
Right. But he eventually wanted to go back to school, and then we had another negative experience.
Right.
So would you have preferred to be in school if school was not what it was for you, or did
the one thing that I really wanted to be in school, but they wouldn't allow me to, basically, to be in a regular school setting. A regular classroom wouldn't really work, basically. It wouldn't work for me at all, because students can be mean sometimes, and with being dysregulated before, I think it wouldn't really work for me, basically. And I mean, it should work for other people, and you obviously want them to be social, but for me, at least, it's, I mean, it was very, very hard for me to be social with people and actually do stuff, and because I wasn't really accepted, basically.
Right. But back to the advice you gave earlier, this is where we need to challenge our school systems to be creative, like you said, to meet the needs of all students, because, every student should have a right to a free and appropriate public education. But we can't just have one size fits all. And if it doesn't, well, here's choice B. We've got to find ways of working with people that have different needs. And it's unfortunate that, with your experience, I don't think they did a very good job of meeting that need that they should have been meeting. And it was great that you've been able to with the homeschool option and with your mother. But it's we need to do better.
I understand that like people have a very, 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 very hard time like trying to get that, and you have to fight tooth and nail just to get that, basically. And actually find supports for your child to actually do that.
Oops, I think Jennifer had a question, but it looks like she might have frozen on us.
She's frozen.
Okay, we'll see if she unfreezes here in a second.
Am I still there? Am I there?
Yep, you're here. Okay.
Go ahead.
Can you think of is there sensory overload issues? Are there accommodations they could have done to make school work for you?
Well, it was a very, very sensory overload. Plus, I didn't really know how to write, basically. I didn't know how to, and they didn't really offer like an example, assisted technology, basically, for me to actually go to a computer and write stuff out. Like, I think that's very important to have if, the write and read and write is to, have them have assistive technology.
So if you'd had sensory accommodations, keyboard, like graphic accommodations, it probably could have worked for you then.
Of course, yeah, but
it's the fact that you weren't accommodated that made it not work. Not that.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So I want to share another comment here. Oops, that was. I'm sorry, not the one that I had queued up here. This is from Stacy. Says the system is set up to push kids out that struggle. And it starts with students that do not easily conform. Students and adults make them the bad kids. So, this is something that certainly happens where, the kids that are having a hard time, rather than accommodating them and meeting their needs, there are many that are pushed out.
Exactly.
That's unfortunate for sure. So Jennifer, you want to ask, I want to transition into talking about his photography. You want to talk a little bit about his photography?
Well, I went through his page, and everybody needs to look at his page because he's extremely talented. And I think I'm going to look at it for 15 minutes to get ready for this interview. And I looked at his stuff for 3 hours. I love really artsy neurodivergent people. So we see you're very talented. How did you get involved in photography, Sam?
So when I was 10 years old, I first picked up a camera at my music therapist. I think it was at Hochstein. Yeah, Hochstein. So I went to Hochstein, and I was there for a certain amount of years with my teacher, Joe Kostecki. And very, very great teacher. He was very, very kind, respectful, and all that stuff. And so I would always basically pick up my mom's phone and take pictures. Even with my iPad, I had an iPad, and it would just take. I would even take a pictures out the car window. Even in the middle of winter, I would scroll, roll down the window and take this picture outside the window, basically with the the snow on the trees or all that stuff. So when I first picked up the camera, it was at Hochstein, and my mom had the idea, why not get a point and shoot? And I took my first picture at Hochstein in the music room. I think the picture is still hanging up there. I'm not sure though. Mm-hmm. But so, and I took the picture, and my mom said, "Is this good, or is this just me, or is he actually good at this, basically. And Joe Kostecki said, yes, he's actually good at this. He might actually have a talent for this, basically. And the main point was for me to learn how to read, basically. And I would post pictures on Facebook, on snapshots by Sam Maloney. That's where I have all my followers and everything. And people, my mom's friends, first started with my mom's friend, then it branched out into other people. And it was mainly for me to learn how to read, basically. And I think I didn't read until I was the age of 7, basically. So that's the main, and I would read the comments, basically, on people. I remember like speaking my first words, basically, which is very, 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 very awesome just to do, basically. So, yeah.
But just some of I'm looking at one, like the bride with the umbrella talking to the little girl. You have like I love that you're definitely outside the box. I feel like you're.
And that bride is watching right now, as a matter of fact.
So, Chantel.
Chantel, yep.
Yeah, there she is. Yeah.
And as I recall, she's in Canada.
She's in Canada. Me and my mom went out. She asked us to take. She's a long time fan and everything. And we went out. We went to the border of Canada and entered. And we didn't have no internet, no whatsoever. And we just had I think we had offline map. And we couldn't make no wrong turns because we know we're gonna get lost, basically. So we went all the way down to Windsor, Canada, which was absolutely beautiful, basically. I mean, it was right across from Detroit, basically, and the family was great. Chantel's family was awesome. The accommodation was just absolutely amazing, and she's just an amazing person overall. So,
So I understand you are doing work for hire for photography.
Yes, I am.
And of course, you have your Facebook page. It looks like you're on Instagram as well, and some other platforms. So if people are interested in learning more about you, maybe whether it be sharing your experience or hiring you for photography work, you're out there and trying to make this into a career, right?
Yes, I am.
That's great. So I've had up, while we've been talking, I've had up some of your portfolio and been kind of sharing some of those as we've been talking to you about this. Your photography is great. I think you and I talked at one point. I share a passion with you for photography. Although you're a Canon guy and I'm a Nikon guy, it's not photography, right? That's right.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, that's great. So tell us, I understand that you're going to be continuing your education in photography in this person-centered plan. Can you tell us more about this plan?
So, obviously, my mom fought tooth and nail to get this plan. And what it does is have a budget, and you have a set amount of money to actually pay people to actually teach, your whatever. And like website, what I'm doing right now is website SEO to get more people on my website. I'm doing photography. My photography teacher and my business teacher, and just absolutely amazing people. Can I say their names? Is that fine?
Sure.
Kyle Hoffus, Asa, and Sean. Very, very, very amazing people, and I'm very grateful to have them. So
that's great. That's fantastic.
They're very talented people. And
they're lucky to be working with you, though, too.
Yeah. Talented as are you. And just to know, it looks like Gail is trying to get us all to Australia. So she says, "Come to Australia, Sam. I will use you for my wedding work. You're unreal."
My sister actually wants to go to Australia, so someday, yes.
Yeah, there you go. There might be an opportunity someday for you there. So what other future plans do you have? I mean, in terms of, aside from photography, what other hopes, dreams, aspirations do you have?
Well, I really want to purchase my first car. which is going to be a very, very interesting. And I want to be able to own a house and after a car, basically, and actually, pay my mortgage and, actually be able to live in the world, basically, and manage a business, which I'm business managing right now. I'm learning how to do that. And, that's 24/7, basically. You're doing that 24/7, which can be very stressful at times. But I have supports that are willing to support me and everything. I can ask a question, any time of the day, basically. So
what kind of car do you want? Do you have something already in mind?
So a car, I'm just gonna go with a junker basically right now, and which is probably like a Honda Civic or something. Start out with a junker or something, or and then I want to, once my insurance goes down, and when I turn, because I think it's like 25, when your insurance goes down, I want to be able to get a sports car, a four-door sedan thing, muscle car, basically. So
that's great. That's great. Well, I knew there was something aspirational behind the
Honda. Or a Japanese car, which I want to get imported someday. So
gotcha. Very cool.
Yeah.
So I mean, your story. Your story, you were in a system that was not supporting you, not helping you, that was setting you up to fail. And you had people telling you that you're going to end up in prison. And, because you've had a strong support system, your mother has been a tremendous, support in your life. And I know you have a therapist now that is, you're heading on this path, Sam. It's really great to see you heading down. But I'm so sorry to know about all the adversity you've had and faced. But so glad to hear you coming out with your voice, because your voice is really important to helping people influence change. So I want to ask anybody in the audience that's watching us, I want to give you an opportunity, if you have any questions or comments for Sam, to put those in the comments now. But I just wanted to tell you, Sam, you're an inspiration. I love your photography.
Thank you.
Love all the things you're doing. Jennifer, do you have any other questions before we see if we have any questions in our audience here?
I don't know if I have question. Let me think if it turns into a question. I just in the last 24 hours of my Sam Maloney research, and then in speaking with you and everything else, it just occurs to me that someone with so much talent, so you're so positive. What was our saying again? It's gonna be a meme. If you can't think about it, don't stop working on it.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks like we froze here again, Jen. So I'm going to talk for a second while you unfreeze. We had a comment here from Stacy, and Stacy said, "Sam, you may have struggled in school, but you are way ahead of most as you are entering the young adult world." Amazing. Yes, yeah, amazing. You're doing great stuff. I want to bring up something here also from our friend and colleague, Beth. And she responded to Stacy and said that she's more encouraged than she's ever been about the possibility of change, both from a readiness and especially from how all of us parents are finding each other and can make ourselves heard and not ignored. And it's not just, us as parents finding each other, but it's connecting with people like you, self-advocates, others that, everyone. If we can come together and we can be a voice, we can make change. And, Sam, I'd love to see you sitting up at Capitol Hill and sharing your story and having people, being heard. That's right.
I just wanted to say that I wonder how much talent is locked up in those rooms, how much beauty, how much brilliance. And I'm so happy that you didn't let it burn your light out, that
of course,
you're an amazing person.
I'm glad it didn't either.
I feel privileged. I got emotional at first because that's what when you first started talking, because that's what I was thinking about. And I'm grateful that you're just so amazing and you didn't let it extinguish your light.
Yep.
Yeah. And I mean, your story has a a path right now that it's really, really positive. And unfortunately, Jennifer, as you and I both know, we've looked at a lot of the data out there about the school to prison pipeline and about, our prisons being full of neurodivergent kids that haven't had the appropriate supports, which is why it's really important for all of us to get together and make sure that we make change. Really thrilled to see, Sam successful, but it breaks my heart and probably everyone else's to know that there are many lives that don't go where they should. And much of this starts with what's happening in our schools.
Yep.
Yeah.
Got a couple other things to bring up here and share. This from another friend, Alex, in Virginia. And he had a comment, is I completely understand what you went through. I was emotionally secluded and restrained from just about everything in my school days. So I've been working with legislators and knowing Alex, I think I was introduced to Alex by you, Jennifer. He's somebody that's actually working with lawmakers to make a difference in his home state of Virginia.
He was actually on the podcast, right? Was he?
This is actually
it's a different, right?
Different Alex.
Greg is another autistic.
Well, I'm glad you're doing that, Alex. That's a very, very important step that you're taking right now. So I'm very, very proud of you, and keep up what you're doing and everything. Just do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Just do it. He had actually met with some lawmakers recently with Jennifer and a couple of other members of the team. So he's doing great stuff.
Awesome.
Let's see. Okay, here's a good one from Amanda, and she just asked if you have any other tips for parents.
Honestly, just just be creative and think outside the box. That's all I have. And actually have fight for your kids. And stay strong. Just do it.
Yeah. And you made a great point earlier when we were talking about listening to your kids and like looking for the warning signs. Can you make
warning
say a little,
signs?
Right. Okay. All right. Let's see.
Do you think that sometimes with the meltdowns, were you not real? Because you described it as angry.
Yeah.
But do you think you were angry or unheard?
Unheard.
Yeah.
Of course, definitely unheard, basically.
Yeah,
so.
that's the whole crux.
The whole purpose, yes.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I totally understand. This is from Dana. She said, any updates on home being the least restrictive environment? So I guess, and you can correct me, Dana, if I'm misunderstanding this, or Jennifer, you have other insights. I'm just wondering if kind of the question is about, in your case, you ended up doing the homeschooling, because that seemed to be the only environment that they had for you. But certainly, in the legal sense of this, the systems should be trying to get you in what they call the least restrictive environment. So, but then it doesn't sound like they did a very good job of doing that. But certainly, home has been a good environment for you. But it
sounds like accommodations weren't available for you to make the classroom work. Yeah.
That's right.
So that's something we have to work on, is to make sure that everybody is appropriately accommodated, which is the law.
Yep, absolutely. So, Alex, is there anything else that you want to, that we've covered a lot of questions today, but is there anything that we haven't talked about that you'd like to share, or any closing thoughts for us as we begin to wind things up here?
No, that's pretty much it. So
okay, that's great. Yeah, I mean, and I thank you for being so courageous and being willing to share this experience, because again, I recognize what you went through was not easy, but knowing that what you went through has the ability to influence change, and you coming to that conclusion that, like, I want to change this. This is not okay.
Right.
I have so much admiration for you, and it's been an honor to get to know you and share share with the audience here your story and all that you've been doing. Jennifer, do you have any closing comments or questions?
Virginia, you have to come visit me.
Well, of course, I will. On the way.
Profound to say. That's just
on the way. On Route 11, it's on the way.
When you guys drive through Virginia, you gotta swing by. I'm gonna make you
make me a meal.
Sorry, she froze on that. She froze on that, Sam. So you can make that frozen word anything you want. That she
make
promised to make you a
blank.
Meal. There you go.
Exactly. Yes.
There you go. So anyway, Sam, thank you so much for joining us today. Jennifer, great to have you here on today as well with us. And I hope everybody learns something from this, and encourage people these events that we've been doing, I encourage you to share them, because we really need to raise awareness, and we really need to encourage change. And again, there's some positive signs of people coming together to work towards change. We've got to keep this work up and do what we can to make a difference. So I'm going to, Alex and Jennifer, Sam and Jennifer, I'm going to drop you both off here into the studio. But thank you again. And I've got a couple quick announcements, and then we will wrap things up. So again, just want to thank everybody for joining us today. Hope this has been, informative. I think anytime we can hear the story from someone that's been through something like this, it's really meaningful. And, I just so much appreciate Sam's courage in doing this, and, hope that it's provided some thought, for everyone here with this, that we can do better. And if we can do better, we have to do better for kids like Sam and others that are right now going through these situations. I want to mention that we will have, again, in another 2 weeks, I think it's the 30th, but I'm not looking at my calendar. We have another event coming up, and I'll be sharing details about that soon. And again, this will be available on Facebook and YouTube after the broadcast, as well as an audio podcast. I encourage you to visit our website, which is endseclusion.org. And please be part of our community. So thank you, everybody, for joining us today. And we will see you